And the beauty of that is that we discover more and more as we progress. It's not one beauty or two beauties that we say, yes, it is beautiful, I found it beautiful, and stop there. Beauty is that it is a continuously unfolding beauty. We discover more and more every day, practically. That is, it is an unceasing wonder, never stops. And that is the true beauty of the system. I remember when I first came to my master, one of the first lessons he taught me, there should be no intermediaries between you and God. So I asked him, what about the master? I mean, obvious question to ask this. Because there is God, there is me, and there is the master in between. So he said, by Lalaji's grace, you will find the answer yourself. No, obviously he could not say what he was or what God was or is. So the very first answer I got was not really an answer, but yet it was an answer in the sense that I have to work towards that answer. So one of the beauties of Sahaj Marg that I have discovered, you don't get ready-made answers in this system. No cut and dried solutions. They too have to evolve within us. Like you get into a train and the destination is not there the moment you get into the train. One has to move towards the destination. Of course, it took me many years to find out that there was really no intermediary between God and myself. That was when my heart told me that the man before whom you are sitting is nothing but that God about whom he is himself speaking as God, as somewhere else. So in some way it is as if a man should say, oh, my toe is aching. He could as well say, I am aching. It's part of me, but this is specific, that is general. The second thing I discovered was about weeping. Normally, when we are children, we weep only when we are in pain, when we are suffering, when we are troubled. But in Sahaj Marg, I found the opposite. That almost everybody wept at some time or the other because of a feeling of vast, immense relief. It is like a child who has lost its way, comes home, or is brought home, falls into the lap of the mother and starts weeping. It weeps with the relief that it lost the way and has found it again. Or sometimes when, a patient is dying, the doctors say there's no hope, the priest is called, then a miracle happens, the man or the woman lives, everybody weeps. Not because he is dead, but because he is living. Again, it is a flooding of gratitude which fills their eyes, tears. This I had not known before, because in my life we had a lot of tragedies, because starting with my mother who died when I was little over 5 years old, which incidentally removed the female or the feminine element from my life, because I had no sisters. The one sister which was born when my mother died, she also died a little later. So it sort of hardened us into a very exaggerated masculine mold that men should not weep, men should not suffer, men should not manifest pain. This rather perverted, stoic attitude to life. I think it was also enhanced by the British rule. My training in an English school, Christchurch Boys High School, under English tutors imported from England, real English teachers, stiff upper lip, that sort of thing, So, she was talking of the bark of the tree, not the dog, the bark of the tree. Now, the bark has a certain protective function. Similarly, in our personalities, there are many things which we create to protect ourselves. And much of it hardens into such a degree of hardness that unlike a tree, we become prisoners of those barks that we build around us. In the tree, nature has manufactured or engineered a miracle that as the tree grows, the bark falls off and the next level of bark is formed. It's not one bark which hardens and confines or restricts the growth of the trunk of the tree. But when we create these tough exteriors around ourselves, they become a sort of a confining armor, and know that imprisons us, we cannot grow. So the bark of the tree is good, it is natural, it is organic, it falls off as the tree increases in its girth. Subsequent layers of barks are formed, and so it goes on. Here we unfortunately manufacture one which gets harder and harder. Therefore, we find this sometimes extraordinarily difficult to recognize feature that some of the hardest persons are those with the softest hearts. They make the outside harder and harder, tougher and tougher, precisely to protect the very soft interior. But in the process, they lose everything. Because sometimes I think they forget themselves what they really are inside and become associated with what they are outside. And then it becomes a matter of pride, the prestige, things like that, that no, they should not give way. A man I know, certain people, I had an uncle like that, my father's younger brother. One of the softest persons I've ever known, but outside he was like a bulldog. He would long to give you 100 rupees, but he would send you away empty-handed and then weep. He would go to the hospital to see a dying friend, and there he would lecture everybody, on how they should behave in hospitals, not shed a tear, how you should be brave, courageous, this, that, and the other. And then he would himself come out into the car, sit down and weep. I mean, it was for me a lesson, you see. And I know how much he suffered because of it. Because when you cannot be yourself, and you have to be yourself only in secret, in hiding, in dark, I mean, it's something miserable, you see. But unfortunately, just as he was beginning to change, and the roughness of his exterior was beginning to wear out, he was about 72, he suddenly fell ill and died. It was too late. This lesson Sahaj Marg also teaches us, that not only have you to give up inner grossness, which he can remove, for which we are grateful eternally to the Master, but the external substances, the chittiness or the bony things that we have formed around ourselves, it is our business to break it down. And how to do it? When iron rusts, we pickle it in an acid or an acid bath. We have to do it the opposite way from inside. Allow our softness, our true nature, our kindness to slowly work on the hardness that we have created from inside and dissolve it away from inside. So one morning it just falls off. The problem is, at that stage we all feel exposed. We feel tremendously vulnerable. And then we say, what is going to happen? No, I don't have my protective layer around me. I am so vulnerable that I am afraid to go out. Then comes this inward withdrawing or the shrinking of the self. And if that is permitted at that stage, perhaps we are lost forever. Because it's a reinforcement of the original fear, it becomes deeper. The subsequent layers of hardness we are going to build ourselves around ourselves will become harder and harder. There will be no possibility of breaking it. So it is at that moment that the problem starts. I don't have my own self-created defenses anymore. I have exposed myself in all my inner softness, humility perhaps, my gentle, loving nature, charitable nature, everything that is associated with being a human being. And if I am not in the right circle or right group or the right environment at that time, it will be like exposing a jellyfish to the seagulls. They just peck away at you, and no seconds at all, you are finished. So that taught me the second lesson, the need to be with brothers and sisters of the satsang. Not all brothers and sisters of the satsang are yet, shall we say, changed from seagulls into something else, but they are very few. By and large, we belong to one family. By and large, we are here to protect each other, support each other in our spiritual needs, activities. So this was something that I heard and learned, that so long as you are in this protective group, where each one supports the other and protects the other, we can afford to do away with all these protective layers that we build around ourselves. Okay, then what happens? Sometimes we have to go where we cannot have these protections, these brothers and sisters. And in the early days, when the mission's members could be numbered perhaps in the tens and subsequently in the hundreds, how to get it? That taught the third lesson is, don't depend on the human beings around you, brothers and sisters, but depend on Him. In what way? Imagine always that the Master is surrounding you as if He is around you, in all the directions of space. As if you are in a soap bubble and the enclosing bubble is Him. And it works miraculously. So you see, from a hard, troublesome, enclosing, restricting, protective layer that we created for ourselves, by throwing it away and by working on ourselves and by having faith in the Master, we are able to replace it with another protective device, which is nothing but the Master Himself. So when that stage comes and we have this enormous freedom that we can be what we really are without fear of exploitation, I think that is the first taste of freedom that we really get. All this other talk of freedom, political freedom, emancipation of women, and the freedom of not wearing anything on the body, these are all very gross conceptions of freedom. What do we value freedom for? Why do we build tall hedges or walls around our houses? So that if you want to, you can even have a sun bath in your birthday suit on the lawn and nobody can look at you. Isn't it? It's not against robbers and thieves that we build high walls. It is against curious eyes. A baby is not conscious that it is naked. We give it the consciousness of nudity and being dressed by enforcing regulations, by putting cloths on it, swaddlings on it. I remember a famous, I don't know, most of you might have read it, a novel, I think, by Anatole France, perhaps, called Penguin Island. where the penguins are all in their original state of innocence, and along comes the devil and he says, aha, this society is too pure, too innocent, too loving and mutually interdependent and kind, I must corrupt it. So he pulls out his chest and from that takes out a bikini. And all the penguins now start wearing these bikinis. And there's a beautiful sentence which says, now the gaze of the penguins was centered on the center of gravity of the penguin body. They did not look elsewhere. So the devil managed with such ease to corrupt a society which had been so innocent. So all these freedoms are mock freedoms, that I have built a house of 15 acres and that I have walls 7 feet tall and ivy covered walls and curtained windows. All this is not privacy, it is a fear of intrusion. Not physical intrusion, not violent intrusion, but merely the intrusion of somebody's curious gaze. Nobody should look at me. You know, it is a funny thing. Few people can meet each other's eyes nowadays. And if you look at them a little longer than you should, it seems that societies, various societies, have naturally evolved a certain brief span of moment in which you can look at another and turn away. It is not offensive. But if that span is prolonged and which is recognized in each society, which is an unwritten sort of code or law of behavior, it offends. And then the other can stare back at you in such an intimidating fashion that you have to turn away. It is this we are afraid of. And why are we afraid of other people's eyes? Because the eye sees through the other person's eye into what is inside. That is why we are afraid more of the eyes than anything else. It is a funny thing that in Sahaj Marg, one of the first spiritual experiences I had was during meditation, one single eye of my master looking at me. For a moment I was frightened. You know, we are used to the master looking at us from outside us. But for heaven's sake, looking at me from inside me, from where I have no protection anymore. You know, that was one of the moments when I felt absolutely, totally, uncontrollably exposed. So I didn't know whether to weep or to be happy. I kept it to myself, wrote it in my diary. It occurred a few days later. And then almost in every one of these sittings into which you go deeper, this eye started appearing. And it was always Babuji's left eye. No, I could not but ask Master about it. So I said, Babuji, what is this? I'm seeing the eye again and again. He said, Kasturi, you see, he is having the same experience as you had. Seems you used to see Babuji's eye too. I said, what does it mean? He said, well, it means the master is everywhere. I said, oh, come on, that I know, but why do I see the eye? He said, it means he's looking at you from inside yourself. Now you cannot hide anything from him. How can I put a shutter around my heart inside? I can put it outside. Then I asked Babuji a question. Does it happen with everybody? He said, no. Then I said, why not? He said, well, in certain cases, the master may like to keep an eye on the devotee or the prospective devotee, the aspirant, in whom he has an interest, perhaps, or one who has to be especially watched, who is in a delicate state, or about one whom there is some suspicion. What is this guy doing? You see? But I think the last one was rather arising out of fear, perhaps. But the fact was there. And then I asked him after some months when I kept seeing only one eye, I had now the curiosity, why I don't see two eyes of the master? After all, he has two eyes. So I asked Babuji, Babuji, why is this I see only one eye? Why not both? He said a very strange thing, you see. He said, you should be grateful that one eye of the master is on you. Don't you think the other eye should be on the world? Don't be greedy and expect both his eyes on you all the time. So you see, that was a very paternal or perhaps even maternal, you see, or if you wish, divine surveillance, not for purposes of misuse in which the word surveillance is used, but keeping a watchful eye over somebody in whom he is interested. Perhaps he is beginning to love, I don't know. So that is the miracle of Sahaj Marg, that as we remove the outer barriers that we have erected to protect ourselves, from society, from marauders, from intruders, he steps in. First as the outer bubble which we are asked to imagine as surrounding us, which the protection which it gives is absolutely impregnable, you see. And then the miracle happens that he comes within us and protects us from inside. Now I don't need anything to protect me from outside. I can be totally vulnerable. Nothing in the universe can touch me. I can be softer than the softest substance in the universe. I cannot be corrupted, dissolved, burned. Nothing can happen. This enormous confidence, of course, can come only from experience, which we have in Sahaj Marg by progressive stages of meditation and by a step-by-step procedure in its step-by-step progress that we achieve. And then comes the final miracle, that the master, to use the tree example, I have always been fascinated by the roots of the tree. At the meeting point where the root emerges out of the trunk, it is thick, hard, almost ossification has set in. But if you see the tiny hair-like roots, which are the things which are really penetrating into the soil between rocks, which is really what is drawing the sustenance, it is so fine that sometimes you can hardly see it. But it supports the whole tree's existence. It is what penetrates where a tree cannot penetrate. It can break up soil, it can break up rocks. Tiniest fracture in the rock, this root will go in and then harden itself, expand it, and the rock is thrust aside. Yet, if you just put a little pressure, it's broken, it is destroyed. What is this miracle? You see that the softest thing can penetrate the deepest, hardest substance known, whereas a hard thing can only break up a hard thing. Can you break water by bashing it with a crowbar? You can raise splashes, yes. You can't break water. You can break rocks. Now, what is it that is in the human system, the equivalent of the finely hair-like root ends of the tree? The heart. With all your hardness, you may try to transform somebody. Well, you can make them hard like yourself. Discipline, soldierly training, stiff upper lip. All these things we can do with our hardness. The Nazis achieved it to perfection. They could make a human being into a destructive monster, heartless. The training they are supposed to have given, especially the SS, the elite SS troops. I read somewhere that when a man was finally selected for training in the SS, each soldier was given a Doberman pup, which he had to train with the utmost care, with love. And at the end of 2 years, when he had his passing out parade, they were all there lined up in their flashing uniforms with this electric device on their shoulders, epaulets. And suddenly the command was given, kill your pup. They had to just stoop and break the pup's neck. Something which they had loved, which they had nurtured, which they had developed, which they had trained themselves. They had to break the neck in one single grasp. Elite SS Corps. I mean, what a frightening training. That you are deliberately made to love something which is so tender, so nice, so loving, which literally eats away your heart. And then on the day of the passing out parade, they are not told this beforehand, mind you. It would be defeating the purpose of the whole training. On that command, if they don't obey, perhaps they were shot, I don't know. Because one who is not unfit cannot just be rejected at that level of training. Perhaps he followed his pup into the nether world. That is easy, as we know, you see. We know from the history of these wars that to make a monster of a human being is the most damnably easy thing that you can do. But to make a human being out of a monster, which is what my master is doing, that is a terribly difficult thing. Unimaginably difficult. Where the master has to perhaps sacrifice himself for each monster that he is converting. Imagine the enormous sacrifice that such a person makes, where his heart is thrown at our feet. Take it, kick it. See, it was easy for my sister yesterday to sing a song where she wants to offer her heart to the master and leave it for him to accept it or reject it. We don't think of the master and his heart, you see, which he is offering to us again and again, to each one of us. And when we reject it, what must be his feeling? We are only having one heart, which can be accepted or rejected once. But his heart is being rejected 1,000,000 times for every time it is accepted once. So what must be the horror of his existence? The disappointment, the grief, the frustration, the rejection that he must be facing. Abhyasis feel they are rejected. You see, it is very easy for them to feel they are rejected. That the master should feel rejected. One you call God Almighty, Master of the universe. That he should be rejected again and again, sometimes in the beginning itself, sometimes after years, sometimes after 2 years. We are always talking of jilted lovers. But here is a man who is exposing himself through an eternity of time. Jilted in the beginning, jilted after a year of romance, jilted after 5 years, jilted after 20 years. Sometimes at the very end, when the Abhyasi is about to become like the master himself, there this fellow goes and jilts the master. He doesn't care. He says, what is the heart for? You see, suppose the tenderest fruit of the tree was suddenly to harden and say, no, I cannot take any further risks. Let me become like the rest of the parent tree and become hard and tough. The tree would die. The tender part of the system of the tree has to make this ultimate sacrifice of facing its own extinction, so that the tree might exist. We have to face this risk, every one of us, when we offer our heart, that the tenderest is offered, that the rest of the system might exist. He who is the epitome of the universe has to risk his heart similarly, the tenderest part of his being, which is his nature, the embodiment of his nature, so that he himself might exist. So this seems to be the law, you see, that unless I expose my tenderest part, I am willing to have it kicked about, ruptured, thrown away. The rest of me which survives on it cannot possibly exist. Per contra, when we try to protect it, encase it in shells of steel and whatnot, the whole thing becomes enclosed. That which should grow, expand ultimately into the universe remains encased in a system of flesh and bones, It dies in it and has to be given another chance to come again into this world, where perhaps it will learn afresh that only by entering in this field, you see, where once again you are willing to have your heart knocked around, disposed of, kicked. So it is the heart which is, I think, the thing which can confine us or which can liberate us. Therefore, in Sahaj Marg, it is not an accident, you see, that we meditate on the heart. It is from the heart that he transmits. It is with our heart that we receive it. It is the heart that is transformed. The rest, what is the need to transform the body? An empty money box is empty. If I put $1 million in it, it's a very rich money box. I don't have to change the box into something of gold to prove that there is money in it. The contents speak for that which contains. So if the heart, which is my substance, which is my signature, shall we say, if that is changed, the man is changed, the woman is changed, the person is changed. And if it should become divinized, well, what else can be the container but divine too? A very stupid example perhaps, but if a bottle contains wine, you say it's a wine bottle. You put milk in it, it becomes a milk bottle. You put water in it, it becomes a water bottle. The bottle need not change at all. It may be of plastic, it may be of glass, it may be of silver, it may even be of gold, jewel encrusted. It's the contents which matter. You cannot drink the vessel. It's the contents that you drink. And similarly, when you hug a human body of flesh and bones, it's not the body you are so much hugging as the heart within it that you want. If the heart doesn't exist, then what are you hugging? It's a piece of flesh. Beautiful perhaps, soft perhaps, yes, but heartless. You feel and you walk away. So that is this, I don't know how my master and his master evolved such a beautifully simple system. How they ever got to this core of human existence. I won't call it knowledge. Knowledge is too banal a term. How did they penetrate into this mystery, you see? Whereas for the last 10,000, 15,000 years of unrecorded human history in India, even the Indians have been dealing with the body, dealing with the senses, dealing with the nervous currents, dealing with the psychic powers of the human system. In all their yogas, the Vedic knowledge, the transcendental knowledge, they called it. Even they have been only confined to the grosser aspects of human transformation. And along here come two fellows, both relatively uneducated, but with perhaps that immense, even vision is a failure there, you see. Immense love for humanity, you see. That perhaps Lalaji thought, what is it that makes human suffering exist? Is it suffering itself? Is it pain? And by sort of eliminating it, they came to the core of the matter. The Italians call it the core, the heart. The core. And they said, this is the seat of all existence. Here is bliss, here is pain, here is frustration. Everything is here. Change this, you change the human being. Change the human being, you change the universe. So you see what, I don't know whether to call it research, because I don't think it was a conscious process. It could not have been research, it could not have been self-development which led them to this miraculous finding. It could not have been a revelation, because there was no lack of revelation in India, the land that has been peopled by giants in every field, you see. But they were merely giants. Cyclops, perhaps, giants, perhaps. But here were pygmies who did the job that the so-called giants of the past could not achieve. Why? Perhaps because, like the tendril of a root, the finer than hair structure can penetrate anything. These people, in their tremendous humility, tremendous nothingness, could penetrate where nothing else could penetrate. Knowledge could not penetrate. Courage could not penetrate. Faith in God could not penetrate. They could penetrate into the heart of God Himself, perhaps, and there discover the secret. Look into your own heart, you will find what I have in my heart, and this is this. That is why in Sahaj Marg, you see, the heart is given so much importance. Sometimes I feel that, especially when we think of discipline and all these things, sometimes I have felt in the past that by not enforcing discipline from outside, as is in all traditional religions and other systems, perhaps we have lost out somewhere. But I felt and I discovered, and now I know that that is also a fallacy. Because a discipline which cannot come from within yourself is no discipline at all. It is enforced. And when the force that is enforcing it is removed, that will come the situation which we say, when the cat is away, the mice are at play. That is no discipline at all. So that again was the immense, I don't think it was the generosity of my master. It was his transcendental wisdom, vision, whatever you choose to call it, which said the only lasting discipline is that discipline which a man creates from within himself. So let me look for it. Let me strengthen the heart. Let me purify the heart. Let it grow from inside. It was a tremendous risk that the masters took, Daraji and Babuji. Because it's like building a house of butter and then asking the people who come in to have torches in their hands. The whole thing would melt. But they had this almost nonsensical, stupid faith that a soft thing can never be broken. And we have also in our fairy tales that when the wind blew, all the hard trees which would not bend were just blown down. And the soft things which were willing to bend went almost to the earth but recovered. It is the soft which wins the battle always, not the hard. You see, the hard is broken. It survives until it meets something harder than itself. But the soft, nothing in the universe can break it. Nothing in the universe can destroy it. All of you know that a drop of water, falling on rock, drop after drop, bores a hole through the rock. But rocks cannot bore holes through water. So Sahaj Marg teaches us, my dear sister or brother or daughter or whatever you are, be soft, be gentle, be loving, be kind, even at the risk of being exploited. What is exploitation? Exploitation is having something and being afraid that it is being taken away. Give it. Give it before it is asked of you. I will replace it. Then when we find this miracle, that for one who is willing to open his arms and say, take, the taker cannot take at all. You can take and take and take, but this is never exhausted. Because he says, don't try to exploit me. When this man is there, soft according to my bidding, open according to my bidding, willing to be exploited according to my bidding, I am his protector. I am now within him. It is me you are exploiting. I am infinite. Take, let me see how long you can take. Let me see how much you can take. Therefore, such a master, as my master could say with impunity, without any fear, loot me. Nobody could do it. Because who can exhaust the inexhaustible? Who can empty that which is infinite? See, this is exemplified in a beautiful story in the Mahabharata, where the 5 brothers, the Pandavas and their cousins, the 100 cousins, the Kauravas, are at war or going to be at war because the eldest brother has gambled away everything, including their common wife. Draupadi. And they determine these 100 cruel, tyrannical cousins decide to humiliate the 5 brothers in public by stripping her of her sari. No, it is said that her own brother was Lord Krishna. And here they call the cruelest of these fellows Duchasana. And he starts to disrobe her, pulls away her sari. She is holding on tight, weeping for shame. And when the last bit of flimsy cloth is going, she throws up her hands and says, Krishna, where are you? At that moment, the miracle happens. Duchasana is pulling yard after yard of sari. There is no end. Ultimately, he falls. He cannot stand even. So much of his energy has gone into it. And she is still fully clad, and there's a mountain of sari allowing him. There is Krishna, you see, with his hand raised. And the sister, you see, here comes a very famous, or I should say, very important moral to the whole story. Draupadi turns around and asks him, where were you till I shouted for you? You didn't come. He says, sister, I was always with you. But till you were holding, how could I help you? When you let go and said, Hare Krishna, you see, now it was my business to hold. And you see the result. This exemplifies the need to surrender, you see. Surrender what? That which you are most unwilling to surrender, our sense of shame. How can a human being who calls himself divine have a sense of shame? What is shame but another protective device which we build around ourselves? To shame, delicacy, all this nonsense. The battery? So a sense of shame, a sense of delicacy, a sense of, all these things which are again parts of this longing for privacy that we have. When a woman, what does she protect most? And when she was prepared to throw it away, see, the last wisp of cloth is going and she is throwing up her arms and shouting, Lord, where are you? He holds. No, this conveys the biggest lesson, the most important lesson. As long as we hold, he says, go ahead. You think you are responsible? You think you are capable? Well, I have no quarrels with that. Even that capacity is mine, use it. But remember, as long as you depend on yourself, I am out of the picture. When you are no longer capable, when you have exceeded your limits, call me, I will come. Spiritual wisdom says, why do you want to wait so long? Do it in the beginning. Anything that you may have, however competent you may be, however strong you may be as a human being, whatever be the wealth that you have got, in His kingdom, it is less than an atom. What are you really surrendering? Throw it at His feet and say, Lord, take it and take me with it. And then see the miracle. You don't have to wait 10 years, 15 years, 20 years and then surrender. Surrender today and the battle is won. So these are some very important concepts, I should say truths. I don't know whether to call it truth or reality or essence or Sahaj Marg. Sahaj Marg is these things, and those who appreciate it and are able to sort of give themselves away. And what is it that we can give, which means really giving ourselves away? If you think of going for a job, you are selling your labor. Take a job as a teacher, you are selling your knowledge. Go to war, you are selling your power, at least in the old days. Prostitute sells only her body. What is it that you can give, which means you have given yourself, your heart? Therefore, my master Babuji said, all that I want is a tiny heart this size, no more. What do you get in exchange? That which I alone can give. So you see, it is here that the most difficult part of Sahaj Marg comes, that we are willing to give everything else. We are willing to give our time, we are willing to give our money, we are willing to sacrifice comforts, sleep on the floor, sleep in the cold in sleeping bags, cold shower baths in the winter, everything we are willing to do. But this, either it's already with my girlfriend or with my future girlfriend or with my past girlfriend, or protected, like the jewels, jewels of England, the crown jewels in the tower. Protected where nobody can see them, nobody can use them, nobody can touch them, as good as buried underground. This we are unwilling to give. So the master patiently waits. He says, when you are playing football with your heart, rugby with your heart, throwing it before people who are going to kick it around, pot it into the goal, well, have your fun and come back. One day you have to come to me. Because I am the only one who deals with your heart, who can deal with your heart in the only way in which it can be dealt with. Ennoble it, magnify it, divinize it, and make it expand into the universal heart. For the rest, it is a piece of rubber being kicked about. How long do you want to play it? Oh, next 3 lives? Go ahead, I can wait. Next 300 lives? Fine, I can still wait. Babuji, how can you wait? Well, my son, if you can do it for 3 lives and 300 lives, do you think I'm any less? I can wait for eternity. But if you can wait for eternity, determine. How long do you want to wait and suffer and have pleasure as you think? There is no compulsion. The heart must be freely given, lovingly given, willingly surrendered to Him to whom it ultimately belongs. Do it when you first meet Him, our job is over. Wait, and the consequences are ours. Thank you.